Imagine two US presidents handling the same global oil crisis, but coming to completely opposite conclusions and taking actions that reshaped America's relationship with India as well as the world's energy markets. In today's deep dive, we'll uncover how Biden's pragmatic energy strategy became Trump's trade war and why India is caught in the crossfire. Hey there, welcome to ShareTreck, and I'm your host Raj. Friends, let's dig into this topic and separate facts from hype. Let's rewind
Russian
to early
troops on the
2022.
border with Ukraine has turned now into an invasion. Ukraine under attack. Military bases, airports and aircraft have been targeted and bombed. The skies over multiple cities, including the capital Kiev, lit up, waking up residents in the early hours of Thursday as Russian artillery advanced. The civilian casualties are unknown, though Russia says it will only attack military posts.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine puts unprecedented pressure on global oil supplies, with Western leaders scrambling to sanction Moscow without driving up gas prices. Back home, Biden's White House knew a total Russian oil boycott was risky, so they crafted a plan with the G7 nations, the European Union, and Australia. $1.60 per barrel price cap on Russian crude. This price cap wasn't just a symbolic gesture, it was an attempt to squeeze Russian profits while keeping global flows steady. And here's where India steps in. Instead of confronting India about buying Russian oil, the Biden administration actually relied on it. Why? The logic was simple but bold. If India, one of the world's biggest energy consumers, kept purchasing Russian barrels under the cap, when I say under the cap, I mean under the price cap, global prices could be managed. And this made India the unofficial shock absorber for oil markets, preventing sudden spikes that could hurt American consumers and, crucially, Biden's political future. This also meant it helped India's 1.4 billion population to avoid energy price escalation. India's imports by 2023 of Russian oil climbed from under 2% before the war to nearly 40% of its total crude supply, helping divert Russian exports away from embargoed European markets and cushioning Western economies, as well as cushioning the Indian population from facing energy price inflation. Was there a formal deal with the US and India for Russian oil? Not at all. Publicly, the US stuck to diplomatic language, but behind the scenes, officials like Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen signaled India was free to keep buying Russian oil as long as the purchases were within or near the price cap and met the key sanctions requirement. This created a unique compromise. India got affordable crude while Western capitals contained Russian export revenues and avoided supply chaos. This also enabled Europe to switch from Russian energy sources to the Middle Eastern energy sources without driving up the price and creating competition for the oil supply. The success of this strategy wasn't just in energy numbers, it showed in politics. After the price spike of June 2022, when US gas briefly topped $5 per gallon, prices later stabilized in the $3 to $3.75 range for nearly 2 years. Europe smoothly transitioned to US and Middle Eastern oil. While the Russian economy grew more isolated, India's cooperation, even if unofficial, was vital to these countries as well as to India itself. The relationship was symbiotic and was pragmatic, not ideological. The kind of arrangement that rarely makes headlines but underpins global market stability. The 2024 presidential transition, unlike the turmoil of 2020, was smooth. Meetings between outgoing and incoming teams, intelligence briefings, and a scheduled inauguration reassured world markets. But for India, the calm masked a brewing storm because Trump, on the campaign trail, made it clear that his view of India's Russian oil purchases was starkly different from what Biden had. Under Biden, India was seen as an essential energy partner. Trump would soon recast it as aiding Russian aggression. Policy continuity is essential for global stability, and this episode reveals a core truth. What one administration considers strategic cooperation, a successor might redefine as liability. For India, this risk was about to materialize in the form of trade barriers, not just diplomatic pressure. Trump returned to office in January 2025, and the Oval Office immediately flipped the narrative. India's Russian oil imports, they said, moved from tolerated to targeted. Within weeks, Trump slaps a 25% tariff on Indian goods, citing both oil imports and military cooperation with Moscow. When India holds firm, the tariffs double, reaching 50%. Official White House statements brand India as enabling Russia's war effort and invoke national emergency powers usually reserved for adversaries, not democratic allies. This rapid escalation isn't just about economics, it's a signal to global markets and allies. The US is ready to impose costs even on key partners in pursuit of a more confrontational sanctions policy. For India, it's a stunning reversal from partner to scapegoat overnight. The irony is unmistakable. The same imports that stabilized global prices and kept American inflation in check now bring punitive trade measures. So, how does this policy flip affect the world? Well, tariffs on India risk fracturing a hard-won balance in energy markets. If India sharply reduces Russian imports, two things happen. First, competition for non-Russian oil intensifies, driving up prices worldwide, including the US. Second, Russia must scramble to find new buyers, likely at even bigger discounts, which could prolong its ability to fund the Ukraine war but erode its profits. For US-India relations, the consequences are even more profound. India reasonably believed the US approved its energy moves. Now it faces penalty for the same conduct. Trust is shaken. Joint projects are paused, and global observers wonder if America's shifting sanctions policy can be relied upon. This isn't just about oil, it's about how quickly US foreign policy can invert and the risks that abrupt changes pose for critical allies and global market stability. It also brings into question the validity of the American presidents who sign international agreements and underscore the possibility that future presidents may just discard past commitments and chart new courses and form new alliances and new strategies. And that brings down US's credibility as a reliable partner. Now, friends, I'd like to bring to you a little bit of the Indian perspective because I'm an Indo-Canadian. So I've been following what the Indian side is thinking about. From the Indian perspective, the main driving force is that they have 1.4 billion population, which depends on energy. And if an energy price escalation takes place and a $65 per barrel oil spikes on to say $150 or $200 per barrel, it would be catastrophic for the Indian economy, and also it will be a big political problem within India. And the opportunity to play a shock absorber in this oil crisis enabled India to move from 2% of total imports from Russia to 40% of total imports of crude from Russia. This enabled Europe to buy Middle Eastern oil without much of a competition because India had moved to Russia. And this suited the geopolitical situation of the time. And India played the role of a stabilizing partner and believed that a US president's word is going to be worth it in the long run. However, now India sees the about turn by Trump as US being an unreliable partner and more of a transactional administration. And this has caused a rift between President Trump and Narendra Modi, who felt that Trump was an ally and had promoted Trump a lot, both in the United States as well as in India, and spoken about that friendship. Now, that has become a political liability for Modi because the opposition is saying that Trump had hoodwinked Modi, and Modi mistakenly believed in Trump, and we are in this predicament at this point of time. So this is how the Indian side is looking at it. The other point that the Indian side makes is that India is not the only purchaser of Russian crude. China imports more Russian crude than India. US itself imports uranium and fertilizer from Russia, and Europe also imports energy and other materials from Russia. So is it only Indian crude purchase that is causing the Russian war on Ukraine? So those are the kind of questions that the Indian side is asking. The other factor on the Indian side is also that India is now the fourth largest economy, and India has created a lot of improvements within its own economy by building a whole lot of infrastructure and improving the corporate governance as well as the legislative system, the new government in the last 10 years has made a whole lot of reforms in the legal sphere, in the infrastructure sector, and also in the corporate sector, in the taxation. It has introduced GST, and it's modernizing India very rapidly. And this administration is much more bolder and does not believe in the non-aligned approach that was taken by previous administration. This administration believes in a multipolar world and has already stated, even before Trump, that India would have trading and relationship wherever it is advantageous for India, and India would not personally get into instigating conflicts. But if a conflict comes its way, it's not going to flinch. So this is how India is looking at the geopolitical situation and the emerging situation with President Trump. So this is the Indian perspective, my friends. Now, I know that you guys, our viewers, are really bright, and I always like to read your comments because you give me a lot of insights into what is happening from your perspective, because you're also consuming medias from various places and you also got your own opinions. So first of all, I would like to request you to give your feedback in the comment section. I would like to hear your perspectives, and I would also like to thank you for watching this video. If you are not yet subscribed, can you please subscribe and help grow the channel? And friends, don't hesitate to press the like out there, because it helps the channel send this video to more people like yourself who would want to see it. With that, my friends, I'd like to bring this video to an end. I hope you have a great weekend. Bye for now.